Welcome everyone to DynamicsCon. My name is Sceerey and I'm with BDO Digital. I've been working in consulting now for about 10 years. I've had a primary focus in that time on end user requirements, enablement, and management of both teams and projects throughout my 10 years. Today I want to discuss organizational change management and user adoption. I'm going to discuss a little bit about what it is, how to approach it, the overall importance of it, and for any launch of Dynamics specifically, or really any product within the Dynamics suite. And then I'm going to touch on a case study later where we utilize a lot of the practices that I'm going to talk through to roll out a dynamic CRM implementation to over 3,000 people in my organization. In my world of consulting, we are typically delivering a full-scale, large deployment of either a product or a complete overhaul of a product that our clients are already utilizing. If you do it right, enablement and adoption, or E&A, should really be weaved into that deployment in several different ways. For CRM specifically, what I want to stress is if you're changing it even in a small way and you're not doing some sort of E&A, you or potentially your clients are wasting time on updating technology at all. And if users don't understand, if they don't embrace and utilize even small changes in a product used to drive a business, it's maybe not worth implementing something new at all. It's not optional to ignore it and really becomes incredibly important even in the early stages of planning a Dynamics project of any kind. And that is what I mean when I say that it's weaved into the project and the deployment in so many ways. In the beginning of E&A, it really starts well before the production launch. The first step is to consider, why are we doing it? Why are we launching this new product? What is the business value? What's the importance to the organization? And the first goal in deciding which of these 4 value propositions that we should focus on is really the start of that E&A effort. Anything you're trying to do with E&A is going to fit into one of these 4 areas. Is the goal to roll out a tool? Is it tool utilization? Is it getting 100% of all the expected users to use the system exactly correctly? Is it proficiency within the tool, ensuring we get everyone completely proficient in Dynamics? And are we trying to ensure continuity once the rollout is complete and minimize the impact to the users day to day? Or are we just simply trying to improve the organization's overall opinion of Dynamics, or maybe IT as the rollout happens? It's really important to understand the primary driving factor, because in some cases, these 4 things can conflict with one another. One example of that is making folks completely proficient in the tool may cause disruptions in their day-to-day work. Training takes time and can detract from what they do on a daily basis to help generate revenue for the organization as a whole. Oftentimes when we hear enablement and adoption, a lot of my clients will just jump immediately to typical kind of classroom style training with standard user guides on how to perform a number of functions. And it's really critical to think through more than just training in that very sort of generic type way, starting with marketing, getting the organization excited about the change, really helping to drive users to care about what's coming, and really in the context of their job in particular. Then there's change management, and this is really the nuts and bolts of E&A overall. It's all about outlining, like I said, how this change is going to affect specific people in their specific roles, and really understanding how do you tailor your training materials, your communications, and anything else within your E&A overall suite delivery of it that is in the context of their specific jobs. And so support, when I say support, I do not mean just technical support. A lot of times people think, what's IT's role in support? But this is really about how users get their questions answered. And it's really important to note that E&A does not end once the deployment happens. For users, that change has really just started. It is it's become critical at this point, and they need to have that continued cycle of support on how do I get my my questions answered and how do I do my job. It's really important to remember that all things within a system don't happen on day one. And what do I mean by that? Well, typically when we build out any new system, CRM specifically in this instance, there is opportunities, there's the service modules, there's marketing. And on day one, we might not utilize all pieces of the system for all users. And so having continued support as folks have questions is really a critical piece of E&A. And then finally, we have feedback. This is not feedback on Dynamics or on CRM or the product that you've rolled out, but really feedback on the overall E&A program. And this feedback can be gathered in a number of different ways. It can be informal when users are expressing their frustration about that change, or it can be done formally through like surveys or feedback boxes. And if you do not, and the intention of that feedback is to understand what users are getting value out of in your overall E&A program versus things that they find maybe less valuable, or ways that you can tweak your communications to really put all the information in a single place so that users really know where to go when they've got questions or when they need additional support or training. If you do not adjust as you go or tailor your training and communications based on that feedback, there's really a risk that your overall E&A program will fall flat. And then layered over all of these, of course, is the planning of communications and what channels are available to communicate to people, really to get the message out there, to tell them what they have to do, how they have to do it, and by when. We've seen communication channels be everything from emails in the most traditional sense to portals where you can dump all of your training materials and also push out communications and direct users back to a single point of contact for them to really get all of the material from your E&A program as a whole. There are a lot of roles that really contribute to any E&A program. Of course, there's the E&A team that is really central to the delivery of the overall program, the folks that are experts in training and the best way to communicate to teams. But and this includes everybody that is responsible for drafting material, driving the plan forward, those responsible for delivering the material in any way. All of those people, of course, are very central to the overall program and delivery of E&A. But really, in addition to them, there are the functional architects, there's business analysts, there's technical architects, developers, all of which have a really strong understanding of the business context and some of the nuances around decisions that were made to implement different things in a very particular way. And those folks really contribute to the messaging to make sure that it gets translated into a way that's going to land with the business and all of the users in ways that are particular to each of them. All of those roles contribute overall to creating organization, role, and user-specific trainings, communications, and support materials that are customized for a particular instance of Dynamics. There's plenty of material out there on the internet for the out-of-the-box usage of all of these tools, really great things that Microsoft has put out that are, more generic in nature. But the tailored messaging, that is what really makes E&A unique and necessary. This approach really starts with analyzing and assessing the organization as a whole. It's critical to first understand all of the departments, the different user groups, and determine the overall impact that the rollout of Dynamics is going to have on each one of them. As we start to develop materials, we think about what each group needs to be successful, right? Someone who manages an entire pipeline and many sales team members will need very different training than a sole sales team member that's just responsible for bringing in new business themselves and tracking the data entry of these opportunities, or a marketing team member that's only responsible for a specific campaign. Up to this point, we've really talked a lot about the concepts and some of the plumbing that's behind E&A overall, but I want to pivot and discuss a particular use case where we took these practices that I've talked about today and really turned them on ourselves internally. BDO is the #5 accounting firm in the United States. And in recent years, there have been a lot of a huge internal push to be more data driven, to really standardize our processes across the board internally, and to streamline our sales and marketing, our marketing strategies. Implementing CRM Dynamics was just one step towards achieving all of these goals. And this project really came with a lot of its own challenges. We were looking at a lot of integrations, more than I've ever seen on a rollout that I've done for any one of my clients. Multiple data sources that we were dealing with. We actually had 2 different on-premise environments that were merging into a single cloud environment as a result of an acquisition that was made several years ago. Their data quality was extremely poor, and on top of all of that, integrating several other companies that we had been acquired, both from a data and system and really culture perspective. And moving all of that into a single cloud platform where we could start to unify processes, data, and procedures, and really kind of streamline, like I said, that overall go-to-market and sales strategy that we were trying to achieve. The all-in-all cost at the start of this project was projected to be at over $2 million. And so BDO really looked at the investment that they were about to make and compared that to the overall goals that they had as a business. They really looked at what the implications would be around not having that formal E&A plan. And E&A really became their insurance policy, if you will, to protect that $2 million investment that they were about to make. So they started to really understand what the critical pieces of the project were. And like I said, overall, we really needed to make sure that they were protecting their investment, making sure that the users understood what it was that they were rolling it out, why it was so critical to the firm, and how each individual person could contribute to that overall. I really want to talk through 2 major aspects of the program. The first was our champion program. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the second there was user portal. Both of those were really critical to the success of our overall E&A plan. And I'll start with the champion program. We had, kind of a unique challenge in front of us. Really, CRM is a unique tool when it comes to E&A. And let me talk through some of the reasons why. We were specifically focusing on the sales module in this rollout that I keep referring back to for BDO, and the primary users of that tool are sales folks. They typically have a primary focus to go sell things, to hit targets, to really be out there pounding the streets, bringing in new business. And anything that detracts from that is typically viewed as negative by folks that have goals that they need to hit, things that they're trying to really focus on. And for a lot of people in this role, any data entry can really feel like something that gets in between their overall goals and the actions that they need to take in order to meet those goals. And frankly, CRM is one of those things, right? It's data entry. It really is a tool that requires them to manage their day-to-day and do that by entering a lot of data into many different fields. So when we think about CRM, it's really a tool that needs a strong push from the top down to really drive a consistent and complete usage throughout any program or any firm. Because of that, we really focused a lot of our efforts on the champion program and landed on 3 different types of champions. And we outlined the specific responsibilities that we had for each one of these groups. The first are the top leadership with the most to gain by this project going well, which were what we called our champion of champions. They were our stakeholders. They were the leaders within the sales and marketing departments that really had a lot of focus in what we were trying to do. And they really needed to be the ones that painted the picture, the vision, and the direction for all of the other champions and really the project as a whole. Next, we had our use champions. These were our practice leaders, our partners, our account leaders that would all really support the firm's message, and those that had the ability to really hold people accountable for failing to use the tool overall and firm-wide. And then finally, we defined role-based champions that were really the experts in the training content that we had put together, the usage for each one of the roles that we had within CRM. And when someone wasn't sure how to do their job or where to go for training, these were the folks that they utilized to make sure that we could have someone to point all of our users back to say, go utilize your role-based champions to get your questions answered. We really wanted this group to be leaders that truly understood and supported our message. And so rather than dictating participation of this plan overall, we asked for volunteers. And honestly, we got an overwhelming response rate from the firm as a whole. And that really ensured that we had complete coverage of all of the user base that we had across all of our regions, states, offices, and making sure that everybody within the firm understood who their use champions and their role-based champions were, and really then focused on utilizing some of those as part of our user acceptance approvers to help make sure that what we had actually built out was going to be valuable for the firm as a whole. From there, we outlined responsibilities and expectations for each person with an emphasis on the continued ownership of these roles beyond go live. We were overhauling the sales culture in the firm as a whole and really had a lot of bad habits that we needed to break and needed the champions to help drive all of that. And so outlining these roles and responsibilities for them and making sure that they understood that during the deployment, before the deployment and after the deployment, that they really understood what it was that we needed from each one of them. We also created a portal that housed all of the materials and the information any user would need to successfully utilize the new platform. I spoke earlier about defining user groups and roles within the organization and targeting training and communications to people that fell within each of those groups. And we divided our portal out by role. So the account owner, as an account owner, I knew exactly where to go and exactly what I needed to be successful by just going to the portal and navigating to the account owner page. And this ultimately turned into a critical tool for support for us. When end users had questions, we drove them to the portal as a self-serving tool for all things that were related to CRM. Even now, we actually launched this tool on July 1st, and even now in through the end of August, in meetings where I wouldn't even expect questions to be asked about CRM as a whole, I still get people asking, how do I use this? Or how do I do that? How do I find, training or information about the new CRM platform? Because I'm just starting to use it now. I still, to this day, am directing them back to this portal, and I send them a link and I say, go find your role-based page, and they do, and the material is all there, and it's laid out in a way for them that makes it really self-serving and easy for them to find what they need. This slide really highlights the process of strategy and planning throughout the entire project. Like I said, our production launch was in July, and as you can see, we had activity happening well before that and after that, and even through to this day. And this was true project in its overall effort. We talk about E&A being weaved into the overall delivery of any tool or platform, but really we had an effort that was specific to the E&A schedule. We had estimates that we were targeting for each of the deliverables that we were creating, and we had a specific list of things that we were going to produce as part of this overall program. In addition to that champion program and the portal that we talked about, there was an entire curriculum that included recorded live trainings. We had self-guided modules that we created, quick tip sheets that lived on as part of our overall program that could be utilized not only by people that were being affected by the launch of a project as a whole, but also that could be utilized by new people that came into the organization as a new salesperson or as a new account owner. And many other deliverables that were left to be utilized by both of those groups of people. A lot of what we talked about today was the BDO approach, right? But this concept is not a new concept of E&A and having a program and a formal plan and deliverable schedule rollout weaved into the overall deployment of the new tool. And so I'm going to leave you guys with this statistic from ProSci, and it's showing how an increased focus on enablement and adoption can dramatically increase the success rate of any technology rollout or even just a simple update of a tool that you already use. I really want to thank you guys for your time today, joining the DynamicsCon convention, and coming to hear me talk about enablement and adoption. My contact information is here. If any of you guys have any questions or anything that you guys want to follow up on, please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to help support anything that you guys had questions about. Thank you so much. Please join me in the conference chat after this. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much.